Good evening. I would like to call the Government Services meeting for July 24th to order. Roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Okay. Do you want to go ahead? With your question first?
Sure.
Okay.
So this is only my second Government Services meeting, and I had a question. I was hoping someone could refresh my memory on the procedure. I know there's a lot that goes into the procedure, but what is the process for waiving bids? Like, what's the process or the reasoning? I don't know who to even ask that to, but I'm hoping someone can explain that more to me before we move forward with motions and reviewing those.
So can you tell me which agenda item you're referencing?
All the agenda items that are referencing waiving the bid.
Then Pete, that might be a better question for you on why.
Yeah, in general, and I know Bill's over
And it
here,
is a general question, not for each individual one, because you did give reasoning for almost all of them, although there was one item that didn't have an attachment to it that gave a reasoning.
Yeah, there could be various reasons, and I think even on the waive bid form, there's about 6 or 7 reasons for waiving a bid. One is simply if we do an RFQ, a request for qualifications, and we generally do that for professional services like engineers and architects. We don't necessarily, in those circumstances, want to pick the lowest bid.
Okay.
We want to pick the most qualified firm to do the work for us. So that would be one example of where we would provide a bid waiver to hire somebody with the best qualifications, not necessarily the best price, but a competitive price. We always check the prices on standards and things like that. So we usually have that data and that background if needed.
Pete, I'm going to jump in real quick on
Sure.
on that point too. We are actually by state statute prohibited in certain circumstances from considering the price as the primary driver. So exactly like Peter said, the professional services, architectural, engineering, attorney, legal services, land surveying. There are a certain number of specifically called out items in the statute that we have to go based on the qualifications first, and then we can look at the price secondary.
Okay. So one other example might be in something that Public Works uses quite a bit. If we have a certain product, for example, in our wastewater treatment plant, and we've got a certain style pump that we utilize, we generally want to stick with that same pump manufacturer throughout the plant so that we don't have a mix and match of equipment. And sometimes we'll come in and ask for a bid waiver to sole bid a particular product because of that reason, for example. There's several other examples of that, but that for Public Works is probably the most you'll see a bid waiver.
Okay.
Well, let me, before we go, and not to take too long, but let me ask, what are the legal requirements for us on accepting bids? I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen guidance on what are legal requirements for choosing a bidder.
That will depend on the type of service we're discussing. If we're talking like a construction project, we're obligated to accept the lowest responsible bidder. The lowest number doesn't necessarily mean the lowest responsible or responsive bidder. They have to make sure that their package is complete and that we've done a reference check and they actually meet all of the standards in whatever the project is. So it will vary by specific project. Typically, we would, though, go with a low bidder on a construction project, but when we're talking professional services, that's a different standard.
Okay. So the standards, I mean, there's some interpretation and all of that. It's not like bright line law.
Correct. And I'll give you an example. Sometimes municipalities will work with a contractor on a paving program. That contractor may submit a bid and be the lowest, but if they didn't complete their work in a workmanlike manner the previous year, and we've got some experience or some bad references from them, then we would potentially be able to disqualify them and move on to the next lowest bid.
A couple years ago, Peter, I think during my first term, you had sent out, or someone on your team had sent out a PowerPoint, I think, that discussed or went through the whole procurement and bidding process. Do you recall that? Can you send that to us again, or? Does it exist still?
I don't know if I recall that. Quite
Okay.
It might have come from the finance department.
Okay.
Again,
Oh, yeah,
we
you
do have
did.
we
It
do
came
have a
from
purchasing
finance. Yeah, it came from
policy
finance, yeah.
that we can send out, or I think
Okay.
that's even available on our
Oh, is it?
website.
Okay.
But it might have been in reference for that, and you're
Yeah.
right, probably right about the time you started. We're looking at that policy for some edits and modifications. Chris Minnick was probably the one that...
It was Chris,
that
because we were
presented that.
chatting about trying to like amend it maybe to favor more St. Charles businesses or something, and there are rules that the state requires and things like that, so, I don't know, just for the new members, that might be helpful. So.
I do
But that came from
Yeah.
Yeah, I do
finance.
recall that. I'll work with Bill, and maybe we
Okay.
can find that PowerPoint and send
Cool.
it out.
I could use
I was just asking
refreshers.
for educational purposes, because I didn't understand some of it when I was looking through the,
And if we do have a bid waiver, feel free to ask us,
yeah.
you know, what we think about it, why we're providing it. We'd be glad to give you an answer.
Yeah, the justification seemed like they made sense. I just wanted to understand, like, as an overall, if there was an overall, you know, overarching reasoning.
There's 7 other reasons that I'm not thinking about
No,
right
and that's
now.
okay, and I didn't prepare you, and I'm
There.
sorry that I didn't give you any warning for that question. It just kind of came up today when I was looking through the materials again.
No problem.
So, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay. Well, with that, I would like to make a motion to approve the omnibus vote as reflected in tonight's agenda.
Second. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. All right, thank you. Item 5A, a recommendation to approve a resolution to authorize issuing purchase orders to Badger Meter, Inc. for Badger Beacon mobile and cellular water meter reading software and equipment.
Good evening. So some know, some don't. We've had struggles with meter reading for years with obsolete equipment, and it's getting to be a crisis. It's been a crisis for a while. We have meters fail weekly that we can't read, can't get into people's houses. We're talking water meters now. And every meter that's in the city is a Badger meter, has been for decades. They've been very helpful with making suggestions how to keep things going. We've scoured the country for obsolete parts and bought them, but we are at a dead end. And we have hundreds and hundreds that don't get read, which is a burden on getting income in from a finance department. And so we've been working for several months with Badger to try to find some solutions. And this is new software for them, which they can interface into Northstar, our new utility billing system. They've done it elsewhere in the country. And so they've given us lots of proposals. I think you had some of the proposals on there to pick up new software from them and then start installing the endpoints that work with those meters so that we can continue to read what we're able to read now and then gradually move over to 20th century maybe on the rest of it. So happy to answer any questions, but that's the gist. And right now we're looking to get, you know, approval to get the software on board and begin getting meters. And we've talked to finance, trying to get a little bit more, so we're projecting what we can finish the rest of this fiscal year. There's roughly 12,450 meters water, and by the time we get done with Prairie Center and the Springs and Charleston, we'll be approaching 14,000. So we're trying to get on board with everything. Right now, there's about 565 meters every month that can't be read. They're either broken or the reading stuff that's on a radio read won't work and so forth. And so the initial things we'll try to work through is the ones that we can't read right now to get them on track. We did send out a lot of letters to the residents that had stop meters, asking them to at least take a picture of it or read us. Because in general, people work, they're not home, it's hard to get into houses. So we had some success with that, but it's nowhere near anywhere picking up the ones we can't read.
So, Paul, just for clarification, I know over the years we've heard talking about how we're eventually going to be going to smart meters. So this, just for clarification, this is just for water. We're not talking like the census for the electric meters or
I'm
anything like that?
talking electric meters. We're starting to look into that. The thing about electric meters, and I know smart meters offer a lot of data, right, that customers are looking for now. But in terms of us on our utility billing and reading the meters, electric meters are outside.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
We can get to them and read them. So that becomes secondary in our mind to getting the water straight out from an income standpoint into the city for revenue. So we are working towards that, absolutely.
Oh, right. Oh, I know we've, again, over the years discussed that for the electric. So with these then, this is just a dare I say, temporary solution until you said we're going to eventually upgrade all the water meters, or this is it?
This is it for water meters, right? These will be electric, like I said, people talk about smart meters in terms of like signal goes up right and it goes back down. The water meters will be the same way. It just won't have all of the data that needs to be used in electric, right? I mean, there's limitations to how much use you can make of a water meter that's quote-unquote a smart meter. The software is geared for it, though.
Okay.
So what we're planning on installing on the water meter side, they become fully automated and AMI capable in the future.
Okay.
We can decide how to roll that out at a future date, but this is something, the product that we're buying today, that we're asking to buy, will be capable of doing that work.
Right. I just wanted to make sure it was separate. Yeah, so that makes sense. I mean, I've had some experience with AMI technology with my day job, but so I understand that we have two separate meters in this. So, thank you.
So are you looking, is the objective to replace all of the meters with this, or just the ones that are faulty?
No, all meters eventually.
So this is for all of them? Okay.
Right.
And then how does it work? Does Public Works install those meters, or is that contracted out, or is it a combination of both?
Combination both.
Okay.
Initially, we will probably try to start to get the ones that aren't working. And maybe, again, that's a Public Works decision along with finance on labor, but initially we'll be certainly starting them ourselves.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Sorry, one more. Sorry, Paul. So do these, if I'm understanding this correctly, is this handheld, or do these communicate with cell towers to turn?
Not cell towers, satellites.
Oh, wow. Okay. So no, you don't have to have one person driving down the street. Will be.
Not for the new ones. No.
Okay.
We'll still be doing that for quite a while. But
okay. Interesting. Okay. Satellites. That sounds interesting.
Yes, sir.
Is this, and make sure that I understand, because when I read it the first time, I was thinking one thing and the other. Is this mostly individual meters, or is this a platform and some meters?
It's software platform.
Okay. So meters aren't included in this?
The itemized ones are. They are in the budget, right?
Okay.
So in general, the software we need to pick up from them, which is proprietary software, the installation into our utility billing system, and some training for us on them is just right about $30,000.
Okay.
And then cost of the meters, there's two components to it. There's the physical meter, and then there's what they call a register, which communicates to the cell or communicates to a handheld unit, depends on what you're doing with it. And so those are the unit prices that accumulate most of the cost of this, right, in there.
And that goes back, so if this is the software setup and everything and the meters.
Oh, yes.
How many meters?
About 545, 565, plus an additional 400 that we got some endpoints to make it work on the current reading stuff from about 40 years ago. We found some in another state that we are able to read at the moment. That's going away in a heartbeat as soon as the utility billing software changes. And then we have money for labor and or additional meters in the request here. But yeah, immediately there's two batches.
I know in conversations that we've had before, I mean, we're not talking about, starting with like, hey, we're going to do this block of 3rd Street. No, we're talking about those high-value water users, so we aren't exposed.
Initially, it's going to be the ones that aren't red.
Yeah, okay, well, there you go.
And most of the high water users, not in terms of residential, but commercial, that's not the problem. Those are not the things that are failing, right? Some of them are, but this is, besides getting onto new software and the ability to read them, it's about revenue.
And this is part of our fight to recapture some of our water loss issue that we've been talking about for quite some time.
Right, we're changing meters. Yep.
Thank you. You're requesting, budgeted $311,000 and you're requesting $500,000. So that's a difference of $189,000. Is that is next year's budget? Is that amount budgeted for next year or not?
No, we're trying to have it increase for this year's fiscal year.
But is it
more?
I know, but is it? So this money, this $189,000 is not budgeted.
It's not budgeted
even for next year.
No.
So how?
Nothing's budgeted for next year.
No, but I'm saying, but sometimes you have a 5-year plan and you anticipate we're gonna be doing so many meters this year, so many next year. Is there any is it, any of this 109,000 budgeted in any 5-year project?
As Paul said, we'll be doing this
Right.
replacement of water meters, indefinitely forever. Because once we can replace all the water meters that are out there, we'll have to start over again. The ones we replaced this year, 20 years from now. So we'll always have budget for water meter replacement in every fiscal year. So will we have at least $100,000 and some odd thousand in next year's budget for water meters? Yes, we will. The idea behind asking for additional dollars this year is to hold the purchase price.
Oh, I agree. I completely understand.
And we might, again, we'll be working with the finance department to.
I understand.
Probably at the end of the fiscal year, if we've got some dollars available, we might even purchase the equipment and have them on stock or rolling into next year.
One point is, I mean, I can understand being over budget 10, 20,000. This is 189,000. That's my concern. And it's not budgeted in a future year. That's my only concern, that it's a large amount for a budget correction, in my opinion. Thank you.
What do you think the chances are that you're talking about capturing some meters that you haven't captured? You know, what do you think the chances are that we capture some revenue that has been contributing to our water loss? And do you think that there's some kind of unplanned for revenue recapture in doing this as an offset?
So I'm electric, Tim's water.
Yeah.
But the water meters are supposed to be, in general, on a replacement every 10 years. And some of that loss comes from that. Part of it's our water, you know, how hard our water is.
Right.
So that's why in this process, we're not doing parts or anything. It's replace the whole meter, replace the register and the software so it can read. And we will pick some things up, I guess. But again, Tim can address that. Like I said, I'm just electric, so.
Sure. Good. David.
One more thing regarding kind of bouncing off of Ron's question. In our memo here, summary, it mentions that finance will make appropriate budget transfers. So, Bill, are you confident that we'll find the money somewhere?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
So I have one since most everybody else did. Can you go back? How often do you have meters that aren't able to be read? So people sending that in, is that?
We lose
I don't even know what number I'm
possibly
looking
100
for.
every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Significant.
Yeah.
And people, and what we're losing on those mostly are not stopped meters. Mostly it's the radio read endpoints. The city started a number of years ago so that meter readers would have a very quick read, travel down, and pick up all of these reads on a device by radio. All of those quote-unquote endpoints that make that happen have a sealed, non-replaceable 10-year battery. And I think in general, people thought we would be changing things faster, and then they became obsolete. So that's why we're losing them frequently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's great. Looking for a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Brian, second by David. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item 5B, a recommendation to approve a resolution awarding the bid for a 3-year contract for tree pruning and removal services.
Good evening. Over the last year, our staff and summer workers have been working to update our tree atlas data. We're remeasuring trees, assessing sizes, making sure they're in the right locations. By doing this, we're able to put together a bid package based on the tree's diameter, which allows us to have unit costs that aren't reliant on hourly rates. So we're able to plan better over a multi-year period to evenly distribute costs and associate our budget accordingly. So we recently bid the contract for a 3-year term. We received 4 bids, with Steve Piper and Sons Tree Service of Naperville being the lowest responsible bidder. in the limited amount of work they've performed for the city in the past, Piper has done a good job for us, and they provided an extensive list of references for comparable projects.
Yeah, looking at the bids, the Piper and Sons one seems
They're low.
they're very low, and not that that's concerning, but I guess I'm questioning is once that number is reached, if the work is not completed, does that fall back on the city then to complete, or do you know why they came in so low? I'm looking at the difference even between Piper and Sons and Bartlett. It's almost $400,000 difference, and it's just kind of curious to me that usually you see them kind of around the same number, and these are pretty significantly different.
Yeah, especially with this isn't a prevailing wage contract, so you're going to get kind of both ends of the gamut. In this case, Steve Piper and his sons are self-performing work. They have crews, but they do a lot of the work themselves, so their overhead, they're able to keep it down. Like I said, they've done work for us in the past, and they've performed. I'd say my biggest concern isn't necessarily the price. It's out-of-town contractor for emergency work. I'm focusing heavily on the maintenance, knowing full well that we have responsive contractors in town for emergencies, but that is my biggest concern with this. But yes, the price spread definitely.
And the volume too of the job. You're confident that they can still do it on that price with the volume that's there.
We did this work based on zones. For our public services operations, have the city broken into 13 zones. Obviously, the way the bids came in, the way the trees dispersed, the far northwest side isn't going to have the same trees as the southwest side. So we're going to have to kind of blend the zones for this to blend the dollars. But yeah, I'm confident that, especially for this type of program, they're going to be doing it off their peak season, so to say. Their bread and butter is going to be residential work, and we're going to be kind of the fill-in work. For a maintenance program, we want to be that winter program where they can kind of come in and sweep through and hit the oaks and all the winter pruning trees at once as well. And to that end also, I should mention, we're going to be self-performing all the small trees, so anything 10 inches or less we'll be doing in-house. We're going to let them focus on the big equipment stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
I share the same concerns, because there's a wide range, $1 million between the lowest and the highest. So you go to the middle, you said you're $400,000. I don't know I don't know them personally, so I don't know, but do we have an out after year one if they don't perform?
Yeah, all of our contracts.
I want to make sure that they don't perform to our standards, that we have the legal right to terminate the contract.
100%, I agree with you there. Yeah,
okay.
we will.
Okay. Okay.
If they don't do it, I will be back before you saying, next man up.
Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you.
Just out of curiosity, the schedule looks, year one trimming 14,000, year one removal 32, and then it jumps up to 107. But it looks like there's always a jump up on year two trimming. Is that just the schedule you provided them?
That's the schedule we provided them. We based it on geographic zones, and years 2 and 3, I think we put 2 zones in as opposed to year 1 getting ahead late in the season. We weren't sure what the bids would come in and how it would work, so we will be funding that to meet our budget.
And just anytime we remove a tree in this city, just to clarify, we replace it, right? Do we replace one somewhere else, or?
Typically, yes. If it's a viable planting site, there's exceptions to every rule, but in general, yes, we're looking to replace what we take out.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Bob. Roll call, please.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item 5C, a recommendation to approve a resolution awarding the bid for roof replacements at the Public Works Facility and Water Well 9.
For the last 6 years, we've been working with roofing contractors and membrane manufacturers to chase leaks at our Public Works facility. In 2021, we had an infrared assessment completed and confirmed that the insulation in the building had become saturated. At that time, it was determined that the roof would need to be replaced. Following a competitive RFP process, we began working with Archon Architects to do a design immediately, right in 2021, with a 2022 construction project schedule. Well, supply chain issues and workforce issues hit the roofing industry particularly hard, and our architect's estimate for the project inflated to over $2 million, which was nearly double what we had originally anticipated for the project. As such, the project was tabled until we could see if the market would settle. With the need still very evident and some improvements seen at the end of last year, we rebudgeted the project for this fiscal year, and we combined it with the roof at well 9 to take advantage of economies of scale for the well project. We received 10 bids for the work, all of which were under budget, with Preservation Services of Romeoville being the lowest responsible bidder. They do a lot of school work in the area, and they perform similar roof projects to what we have. The reference is all checked out.
Brian?
How long is the existing roof, how long has that lasted?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I
Sorry.
couldn't find the exact.
Just a ballpark. 22 years, okay. And then what is the warranty with this company on a new roof?
I was told by our architect that this should be a 40-year roof. I will find out what the exact warranty is and get it back to you.
Okay, because I'm just curious, because there were quite a few bids on this. I'm just curious from one contractor to the next, what are the warranties? Is it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Because I noticed there's a small price differential when you start out in the beginning. Obviously, it gets much larger as you get to the end. So I'm just curious what that is, because if it's 5 years and the other guy is 20 years, maybe.
Typically, you'll see a 20-year warranty on a roof like that, and you hope to expect
okay.
10 to 20 after that.
Okay. And then the materials for all of the contractors that bid on the roof, is it the same type of system, roofing system?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Yeah, if you could find out the warranty on that would be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just a quick question. So in regards to the roof, is this just shingles we're talking about, or is there replacement of trussels or any beams?
This is a flat roof over our admin area, the fleet garage, and our inventory warehouse. So it's a membrane-style roof, and we're taking it all the way off to redo the insulation, the base layers, and remembering it.
Okay, thank you.
Question? All right, looking for a motion.
Move for approval. Second.
Moved by David, seconded by Brian. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All righty, thank you. Item 5H, a recommendation to waive the formal bid procedure and approve a resolution to authorize a contract with FGM Architects for architectural professional services for the council chambers interior renovation project. We're getting longer.
That's a lot. Thank you. Well, if you've ever been through a meeting in this room, you might understand and appreciate the need for this next agenda item. The technology and the sound issues alone are why we are seeking solutions to enhance the public meeting in this space. I've had several examples just tonight. I just noticed that Mr. Lencioni went to adjust the thermostat. I was just informed that Ben, our IT person who's in the back room, was here since 3:30 trying to figure out your computers to get it ready for tonight. No presenter should have to look at 35 buttons in front of them. So these are the type of things that we're going to be focused on. Beyond making it easier for you to access meeting information from the dais in your location and also be heard clearly from the audience, you've probably witnessed that before. This space is ready for some aesthetic upgrades as well, new carpet, paint. AJ will attest to us replacing that ceiling above the staff table about 12 times over the years. So things like that will be addressed in this study. And then we also want to try to create a more functional layout for public staff and you to interact with each other and do it safely. We are proposing to hire the architectural firm who designed the new police station site. That's FGM Architects. We've had a long-standing relationship with them over the past decade in doing projects like that and some smaller ones. This is your example of a professional service that knows our buildings, that have worked through our specifications before, and we have a good professional working relationship with them, and their prices competitive to any other architect out there. So that's one good reason for a bid waiver on our professional services. They will help us lay out some concepts that we actually explored last year would focus on technology, sound, aesthetics, and layout improvements to this space here. We're also going to be focused on the council committee room right behind me. That it could be used as an overflow room if the technology was right in that space for large meetings, and also den A and B right behind that, which can also be used for overflow. No construction is planned at this time. First, we want to explore some options with you and determine the cost for those improvements. However, if the desire is to move forward with construction, we certainly could be ready for doing this work as early as next fiscal year. So unless there's any questions, I won't repeat the recommendation again.
I just have more of a comment. I think the number one complaint I hear when constituents come in here is they can't hear what we're saying, or it's very challenging. So I'm glad to hear we're going to address the audio portion of it. So I fully support it.
Same. But I don't know if we're too far ahead or we're just again, this is just design and what have you. But are we also maybe have this as a question for you? Are we going to have a camera in this room?
Yeah, that's part of this. We're going to involve an AV tech person to really take a look at everything comprehensively. So that'll involve, so we don't have the individual cameras with the Zoom anymore, and then getting some better camera systems in here as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I do have a question. So this was one of the things that kind of sparked my question about the waiver. So I see that our original budgeted amount is $95,000, and we're looking at proposing a $149,000. So I guess my question is what is the harm in going out to bid for something like this? And I understand that we've used this architectural firm before, but I guess my question is why wouldn't we want to get someone else's opinion on that, like to see what the other costs would be to work with somebody else, or to maybe get some other ideas in there?
So this is one of those ones that we're actually prohibited from basing it solely on price. You would have to issue a request for qualifications first, evaluate the skill set and qualifications of that architect, and then once you award it to an architect, then you can discuss price. So there's that waiver if you've already got a pre-existing relationship with an architect to do that, but we would not be able to just, throw it out and see what the cost would be for each of those different architects. We have to base it on their qualification set.
Okay, and we don't even know if 95,000 is even a reasonable number.
I will defer to our Public Works Director with his architecture background on that one.
We've checked that again against some other bids that we've opened up with other architects. We based it on the proposal that they provided for projects that we've done in the past, all the way back to the police station site. And you look at their hourly rate, and you look at their proposal, and you ask them questions, and their hourly rates line up with pretty much every other architect in this area. So with professional services, those hourly rates and those standards with which they really figure out how to bill us for their work is pretty standard. It's pretty standard.
That's fair.
And just a comment about the additional dollars that we're getting approved. So sometimes what happens is that if we don't get the full contract approved this year, we're only planning on spending $95,000 of the total amount this fiscal year. That's what's been budgeted. So we're going to go through design, and we're going to go through construction documents with the architect, and then prepare bids if we want to proceed forward with getting construction. But there's 2 or 3 other steps in their proposal, and one is construction admin and bidding services during construction that will actually happen next fiscal year. So what we've done in the past, and sometimes it's a little awkward, that we've got an architect on board or an engineer on board, and we only received approval for $95,000 this fiscal year. And then I'm back in front of you next year asking for the additional $45,000 for that budget cycle, and the first question that comes out is, why would we consider a different architect? They've done the design, they've done the work to this date, it makes sense to move forward with that consistency. So that's the reason for getting the total amount approved today, and then, but only $95,000 of the budget will be spent this fiscal year.
Thank you so much. That makes perfect sense.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by David, moved by Brian. Roll call, please.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
All righty, thank you. Item 5I, information only, a presentation on lead service line.
Mr. Chairman, actually, I was wondering if we can move I to the end. We can take care of the three business items I got, J, K, and L, and then we'll hit I. Is that okay?
No problem with me. Do you want to start with 5J?
Yep. 5J is a water main replacement project on South 4th Street. It did go out to bid. Give me a second here. It did go out to bid. 8 Lamb bid. Contractors is the lowest bidder. They have won several water main and street repair projects for us in the past. Our recommendation is to move forward with 8 Lamb. Our goal is yet to finish this project before winter hits. Any questions on that one?
So you're replacing the water main on 4th Street. Would that also open up an opportunity to replace what we will be talking about soon, is the lead pipe components there? Is that part of it?
Yes. So
Okay.
This project actually on 4th Street, all those homes are actually fed from the back.
Okay.
We're lining it up, so this is actually a first phase of several projects in the future. There's a 4th, there's an additional 4th Street budget for next year, 5th, 6th, and 7th.
Okay.
As we continue to build water main in that area, we'll be transferring the services over. We'll work with these homeowners and transfer them over to the stubs that we're going to provide them in the parkway.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Move for approval. Second.
Moved by David, seconded by Ed. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Item 5K, a recommendation to approve a resolution awarding a proposal for that SCADA program management or concentric integration.
Yeah, so this is a SCADA program. It's best described as basically an IT system for water and wastewater plants, water distribution, water treatment, wastewater treatment, and water collection or wastewater collection. It's really the computer system that runs the entire water and wastewater. Concentric, we went out for an RFQ a couple years ago. We awarded Concentric. We've been working through this master plan slowly, replacing and upgrading our entire SCADA system, both on the water and wastewater. This year's amount is $250,000. We're recommending an award to Concentric for this project. They will be primarily working at the main plant this year. Main wastewater plant, sorry, I should have clarified that.
Any questions?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by, is that Brian? Seconded by David. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 All right, thank you. 5L, recommendation to approve a resolution awarding the capacity management operations and maintenance plan Phase 2 sewer system evaluation survey of subbasin, the WR to RJN Engineering.
Yep. So what this means in short, this is smoke testing and manhole inspections. So smoke testing, we're going through our sanitary collection system in this area, looking for leaks to reduce the amount of I&I. I&I is extra rainwater. It gets into our sewer collection system that we end up having to treat at the wastewater plants. It costs us money. So our goal is to kind of reduce the amount of I&I. Smoke testing is one of those tools we use to kind of look for connections. We just did a smoke testing down here on the other side of Main Street, the older part of town. We actually came across some storm sewers that started smoking, so we have to go back and do some more investigations. So those storm sewers are connected to our sanitary system, so we use this tool to identify those. Go back next year for construction projects, remove them, so we have a tighter sanitary collection system. The other part of this is manhole inspections. Again, another tool to kind of look at our manholes. That's another source of infiltration. Look at the manholes, identify them, score them, basically create a list for construction projects in the following years to come. RJN is currently under contract with the city. With our current contract, we're allowed to extend services. Last time we went out to bid, RGN was the only bidder. We reached out to the other bidder recently to see if they were looking to bid any work, and right now they're not looking to bid any more work this year, so we're proposing to extend the current RGN contract. Any questions?
Oh, sorry. Just a comment. I actually got one of the letters for the smoke in my the testing in my neighborhood.
Yep.
And I appreciate it. There were no disruptions. I didn't experience that. Well, AJ, you and I talked. I mean, you did close down my street for a couple of days, but that's okay. Oh, you did. But I'm sure that was a result of that testing. So it looks, and again, went well. So thanks for whatever your process is doing well.
Basically, I was going to ask the same sort of communication is going to go out with this, I'm assuming?
And every year we try to improve it. We get some feedback every year, so there's a little sense we'll adjust here and there, try to make it a better experience for the homeowners. I will say, if you talk to homeowners in the area, in your area, tell them to please read the letters. That's our biggest issue. So.
Okay.
Cool.
Second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by David. Roll call.
I'll take it.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, 5I, information only, presentation on lead service lines.
Okay. So I know everyone's excited to hear about lead service lines tonight. So this is going to be just a high-level conversation about lead service lines. We'll probably be back in the future as we continue to grow our policies and the path moving forward. So I'll get through this. If you have any questions throughout, feel free to ask. Or at the end, we can go through a couple of the major items. I do have, after we're done, I do ask Chair, I do have one announcement for a road closure once we're done with this, so I would just like to touch base on that real quick before we close the meeting. So, okay, first thing, lead service lines. First of all, I want to just kind of point out Fair Graham Associates. You'll see their logo in the bottom right-hand corner. They are currently working with us to kind of format this policy, and they also are working with City of Rockford and the City of Crystal Lake, are two kind of larger communities that are kind of similar to St. Charles, have a lot of lead service lines. Somewhat of a similar demographics, or at least an understanding of what's going on. So, what are the requirements? So, as we all know, I mean, really the trigger point was Flint, Michigan, and what occurred in Michigan. There was also communities throughout this nation that really kind of pushed forward the lead line. Really, what I want you to really take away from this slide is there's a lot of fingers in this pot. So everything I'm talking about tonight will change or could change. The overall goal will not. Everyone's kind of looking at, yes, we all understand lead lines has to go, okay? For the City of St. Charles, you'll see why at the end, it's going to be a slow process for us, okay? Every community is a little different. Just basically how every community grew. Some communities can attack it in 1 year and be done. Some communities can take care of it 2 years and be done, or 5 years, or 10 years. St. Charles, we're a very old community. We grew out over time. We had some different, areas where, we had a lot of home building and a lot of areas that we, maybe didn't. But because of that, we have a lot of lead service lines. So that's really the reason why it's going to take us some time to get through all this. So, and then it's also just kind of mentioned before, at the end, just realize there's all these agencies. I have the U.S. EPA, I have the Illinois EPA, I got the Department of Public Health, I have the State Senate and State House of Representatives that continue to make small modifications. So even after I'm done tonight, there could be, different rules that come out, every time the House or the House Representatives sit down and kind of go through the ruling. So there's a couple of big pictures, and we'll keep you informed as this kind of grows. So first of all, what is lead service lines? There's a lot of misunderstanding about lead. Where is lead coming from? Where does lead come from? It does not come from our groundwater, for at least us in St. Charles, okay? Our groundwater does not contain lead. We actually don't contain lead as we're pumping it through the system until it actually hits the service line. The service line is kind of in this picture, and I apologize, this is kind of in a way here, but right here. Let's try this.
You might be able to move it.
There we go. All right. So in this picture, it actually shows a lead service line and a plastic service line. Some communities are going to plastic service line. This is one of the things we actually are finding out, and a lot of the communities are. We're actually going to be going to a copper line. Just because of grounding for electric, and that's, I don't want to get in that detail, but just in case it's brought up to you at a different time, when we go to replace lead service lines, we're replacing with copper in the future. Another thing I wanted to stop and just kind of reference, and it really does, this presentation doesn't kind of discuss it well, but besides lead service lines, this rule is also going to be the same thing for galvanized. So galvanized pipe, if you have a galvanized service line, they consider that, they're going to call it a lead service line, and the same ruling is going to follow. Lead service line in this picture is the thicker, more of a dull looking pipe. Copper obviously looks like a penny. It'll be very shiny and coppery looking, and then obviously copper. And then PVC is going to look like this. It's going to be a blue or a red color typically. So if there's no lead in our drinking water when we pump it, there's no lead in our pipes as we're feeding it. Where does the lead come from? It really comes from the service line. The service line is shown in this picture. So this blue, it would be like our water main. This would be your typical kind of traditional layout for like a Northern Illinois community. You have a service line will be from the connection point to the main all the way to the meter in the house. So this is trying to depict basically a service line going to the house, going to like a basement or crawl space. We'll have in some of our homes, there's no basement or crawl space, so it'll come up, it'll be a slab, it'll come up like in a utility closet or like by the hot water heater. But that's where your meter is, and that's one of the things that Paul was, requesting is basically replacement of these meters. The other key point of tonight's discussion is ownership. Ownership currently, per our code, and it's the same throughout most communities in Illinois, is from the water main, where it's going to be somewhere in the public easement. It could be in a backyard public easement. It could be in the street, all the way up to the property line. So the property boundary here would be your property line. At that property line, there's going to be some type of outside shutoff. It goes by several names, curb stop, B-box, outside shutoff. That's going to be typically by your sidewalk or in your front lawn. Looks like it's a round cast iron circle. It usually says water. It's usually about this big. As you go on behind the curb stop, that's where it becomes a private side. It's actually under private ownership because it's on private property. We're going to talk about a little bit more about this as we go through the presentation, but I just want you to keep that in mind. After the property boundary is a private side. It's under ownership of the homeowner. So that means they're responsible for that lead service line to the home. And it enters the home at a meter. Any questions about that portion of it yet?
I do, but I'll save it for later.
Okay, that works. All right, and not just cause confusion, but sitting on council chair, you're going to experience this at one time. Sewer service is different for the city of St. Charles. And I don't really want to bring this up, but while I got the opportunity, I might as well discuss it. The sewer service for a homeowner, they actually own the sewer service from the basement or their home all the way to the sewer main, including a connection. So that's why there's always some confusion for homeowners. So why do you don't have the water service line, but I own the sewer service all the way to the main? That's the way our code's been written. That's the way our code's been written for 100 years or whatever. I've done research throughout the Fox Valley. That's how most of the codes in Northern Illinois are written, that water service has always been owned to the property line by the city, but the sewer service is owned typically to the sewer main. Just so if you come across that at some point in your career, you at least have that information, okay?
So the city owns the line all the way to the street, or the homeowner does?
The water service, we own it to the property line.
Right, but for sewer.
For sewer, from the connection point, so if this is a sewer line, it'd be this connection point all the way to the house is owned by the homeowner.
Oh, by the homeowner.
Or property owner.
And then we own the meter.
What's that?
The water meter is owned by the city?
Yep. Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm a little diverted, but I took an opportunity there. Okay, so owner's obligation, so the owners would be the city's obligation per the laws. We need to complete an inventory by this next April. It's really important, and I need your help, I need everyone's help in this room, if we're going to be pushing out our additional inventory letters. This is like our 4th or 5th mailing. We really need these returned by the homeowners. It really is going to help us understand how many lead service lines we have out in the system. Unfortunately, the city of St. Charles has no good records on what lead service lines we have. We have some ideas where we know where there's lead, but there's no historical records. So this is the only tool we have to understand what's out there. If we come across a lead service line, let's say we have a construction project, or even Night Corps comes up and they're digging next to our water service, and as we discover it's lead, it's our job as a water utility in the city to go knock on the door and let the homeowner know, hey, just letting you know you have a lead service line. We are doing this part of our inventory too process. There's a whole section in there. There's a whole section on our website that kind of educates the homeowner on what they should know about lead service lines. We need to notify the homeowner when we have a water main project or something needs to be repaired. Again, we're just kind of educating them on lead. We are required to produce a lead service replacement plan by next April. This is the first draft. This has to go to the EPA to be reviewed and commented on, and then be returned to the city based on our comments, and then we'll start implementing a more permanent plan. The permanent plan doesn't have to actually be completed until April of 2027, and we actually don't have to replace any lead service lines or implement this lead service line plan until April 16th of 2027. There's some key dates.
I have a quick question before you. What is the percentage of return on the surveys? Where are we at with that?
We're getting about 30%.
Oh,
so okay. Every mailing, we're getting about 30. Sometimes better, sometimes a little worse, but that's about where we're at.
Sorry, could I throw something in there too, just to make your life worse here, standing up there? I apologize. So I get it. You're doing a survey, and if nobody turns in the survey, we don't get the data. Has staff, or is it possible to do some sort of extrapolation based? I mean, when would lead service lines went in? When water service became available to houses, right, in the early 1900s. So can you get an idea of how many houses in St. Charles were built at this certain time, and then just maybe factor out attrition in terms of they probably 10% probably replaced it on their own or something?
Yeah, so we've actually already done that.
Okay.
So that's how we've come up with, towards the end of the presentation, I got some rough numbers of what the budget looks like, and that's how we're figuring our rough budget numbers right now. We took the construction date, looked at also everything we had as far as water main. Okay, if I came out your road and I did a water main project, 2 years ago, we know we did the copper, service lines are up to your home, then we know we can kind of figure it out. Or there's a lot of subdivisions out west that we already know they're all copper. Right. So we've already kind of worked through all that in the early beginnings of this process. Now we're trying to get the finite detail, and the EPA really wants a survey is really what the EPA wants to see. They kind of, I'm not going into all the details tonight, but we're kind of taking the steps to recommend steps, nationwide steps that they're asking us to do. All right, so partial replacement, this is where it gets really confusing. Even though we don't own the private side of the water service, we are obligated to manage the replacement of that water service. And that's really confusing, isn't it? There's no clear definition of managing it. We got to make sure that we take every effort that the private side is replaced. This is where every community is struggling. I'll get again some additional information here in a little bit. Is what does that management of the private side look like? Okay. So what does that mean? What are some exceptions to that rule? The private homeowner cannot be contacted or won't grant us access. So let me tackle the first one. That'd be like a bank-owned property. The banks typically don't respond well to letters of, us trying to replace the lead service line. So that's a prime example. Or no matter what we do, we're going to come across homeowners that just don't want us on their property. There is a full process in the law that we need to follow. If Pete doesn't want me to replace his lead service line, I go to Pete's house, he goes, nope, I don't want you on my property. I've lived with lead service lines, for 20 years, 30 years, I'm fine with it. That's fine, but unfortunately for the law, then we have to have them actually sign a waiver, the Department of Public Health waiver that then gets mailed to the Department of Public Health. It gets put on their radar.
Oh, I have a question.
Yep.
Because a constituent asked me that question, they couldn't be here tonight. So if someone refuses to have their lead pipe replaced, they sign a waiver?
Yep.
And that's it?
That's their decision, yep.
So they're not charged,
exactly. If it's your property, it's a private service line. Once you hit the property line, that's your right.
So the owner of the property cannot be forced by any current statutes to replace their property.
That's the key language here. The current statute, we cannot force them, but they do make us, as a city, require them to sign a waiver, understanding their risk, and that is then turned into Department of Public Health.
Okay.
It has to be turned to Department of Public Health.
Thank you for clarifying.
And one other question. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So what happens to the city part then? Do they still have to complete that?
We still have to replace our
Okay,
side.
fair enough.
So I'm sure you're going to get to this, but so is the tricky part what makes this complicated, the way our ordinance is written, we obviously, there's a break of who owns what. If we just had access to the entire line, we could figure out how to attack it, and it wouldn't be, most people don't realize that they're responsible for that line until we come and tell them. If that wasn't the case, would that help?
Unfortunately, it's not that easy, and they asked me that question again at the end. All right, so how much is it going to cost, right? And I want you to be careful with these numbers. We've already done a couple this year. I would say the private side, that number for private side is probably good for unfinished basement. Maybe. The public side, these are just ranges. These are what we're using for budget for now. When we discuss with all our colleagues in the area that are kind of going through lead line replacements, we've done a couple this year. I've done 3 already this last month. I got 3 planned for coming up this month. I'm seeing a range on this private side from $6,000 to $10,000 for unfinished basements. Key word there, unfinished basements. So if I go in your basement and I'm destroying a finished basement, the cost will obviously rise. The public side, depending on road construction, type of construction, if I have to move the service line, there's thousands of variables that go into this. 8,400, could be a little bit cheaper. It could be up to 15,000 per service. So this, again, as this project and as this kind of grows, the numbers will get better. Everyone will kind of understand. Another variable in this right now is the cost of copper and the cost of supplies, cost of labor. So just, you can take this, use it as a reference point, but that's all I ask you to do. Okay, so really the question is, who pays? So legislation, the laws do a great job telling the city and everyone else what we need to do, but they don't tell us or they don't provide us with any money. So it's really silent on who pays. It doesn't force the city to pay for the private side. It doesn't force the homeowner to pay for the private side. It just leaves it wide open. It's silent. So every municipality, utility, water districts are taking a different approach that fits their community. They really, and I just gave a couple examples here in line two. I'll go over a couple of local municipalities, what they're doing. Like I said, everyone's doing something a little different. I've seen everything from like loans that get put on your water bill to the cities are paying for the entire water service, where the homeowner has to pay for it all out of pocket. It's really variable, and there's really no clear direction. When we come with a policy in the future, we'll probably give you guys some recommendations, so they're not asking for any direction tonight. It's a tough decision. I don't want you to make any of those decisions right now until you understand what you're really agreeing to. One of the things that is out there that everyone talks about is this free money, right? It's available grant money. Yes and no, all right? I'll just be quite frank. It's not free money. It's everything from the federal level is getting pushed through IPA loans. I think I've been up here several times before. IPA loans is how we pay for our wastewater treatment plants, our water plant expansions. It's following that process, plus there's some additional restrictions on the funding portion of this, okay? So what that means is basically if we have an EPA loan, we have to, or we're trying to get some of the grant money, we have to submit for it, and we have to, submit a project plan, and we have to get scored and prioritized. The real challenge on the lead line portion, different from like our water project loans through the same process, it's a scoring. So St. Charles, and just because our demographics and our build and our community, we have a really hard time scoring really high because of all these requirements. You can see that these are their priorities, and communities that score high in medium household income compared to the state average, children under 6, we might score high there. Unemployment rate, poverty, I don't need to go through the entire list, you can read it yourself, but it doesn't favor St. Charles, unfortunately, and right at this point, we're coming in at a lower score. We are pushing and trying to obtain some of the grant money or EPA loan money. We will continue to try, but those are the challenges right now. So what are our neighbors doing? So again, I'll put my stipulation out there that I talked to these communities about 2 months ago. These are very fluent projects and project plans. So what I'm telling you tonight may change or may have already changed, but I'll just give you kind of a glimpse of what everyone's doing. Batavia is offering currently a cost sharing between the homeowner and the water utility or the city. The city is basically funding the entire project except for the private portion, the supplies on the private portion. So that's, the copper service line, any fittings, the B-box, the meter, the city's funding the rest of the project. The customer the city will pay for that portion. They won't pay for the plumber. The customer can get reimbursed for all those costs by the city. And then again, you'll see it's a common theme. Sorry about that. Common theme of the last line is basically, again, no one's forced to replace their lead service line. On the private side, they can sign the waiver. City Elgin. You can hire a plumber and replace your private side first, and then the city will come back and do the public side. Option two, and this is similar to kind of like what Geneva's doing. They basically go out and they bid out subcontractor work, basically. So the city would go out to bid. We have 4 or 5 underground contractors or plumbers that can replace lead service lines. You can use our pre-qualified contractors, and you can get reimbursed at different quantities. So this is kind of like the putting a loan on your water bill type of situation. I know Elgin does this. There's a couple other communities on the north side of the city that are doing the same thing. Again, same option. 3, don't do anything, sign a waiver.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yep.
For option 3, what does that 2-year period mean? Do they expect it to maintain a certain level of lead or go lower, or why 2 years, I guess?
So what it doesn't describe, and I should have probably said, I didn't say this earlier, so even if we have a homeowner and it signs a waiver, I have to provide them a filter, a Beretta filter for 2 years running. So I actually have to give you the Beretta cartridge or the container and the filters and keep you stocked for 2 years even if you sign a waiver.
And what happens after 2 years? It just ends?
Well, the theory is behind it, the reason why they say 2 years, because once you disturb that lead service line, there's some fear of, let's say we come in, any of these cities, they come in and they replace our side, the city side, right? The public side. There's concern that by us cutting that, we disturb the lead service line, causing maybe a higher level of lead. That's why we provide them the lead Brita filter for 2 years.
So to flush it out basically
yep.
over 2 years. Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I skipped over Geneva. Geneva, very similar process. They have a contractors that are already kind of low bid contractors. Now, I did talk to Geneva about this. Currently, their private side is not going over $6,500. So basically, the homeowners are getting all the work paid for by the city. Just to kind of give you some background there. Okay. So how much do we have, and what do we need to do, right? So the law says there's this whole chart based on our population, how much water we produce, all these other variables. We basically have to do 3% a year for the city of St. Charles. What does 3% mean for us right now? We're projecting around 4,000 at the 120 service lines per year. We need to complete that within the next 34 years. What does that mean for us? What does that really mean for us? And I'll skip all the way to the bottom. That's about $2 million of work a year. So what are we doing now? We're putting together a project plan for you. We'll be back. There's a couple of the key policy decisions we'll have to have. There's who pays is really the biggest question. Is the city covering the cost all the way to the meter, or is it some other program on the private side? We just need to make sure we're ensuring compliance and the quality of the work. So again, unfortunately, like I was want to hope everyone understands, the city per law is required to manage a project all the way through, make sure the service line is replaced all the way through the water meter, but that doesn't mean we have to pay. It may be your decision that we do pay in the future.
Is that 1.8 million to the home, or is that
to the
just?
home?
Okay.
That's to the home. I gave you the worst case right now.
Got it.
What would you do when the resident wants to, you come to me tomorrow, Brian, and you said, I want my service line replaced now. So what is our policy then? So we'll come forward with some of these recommendations in the future.
I have a question for you. I saw a couple of articles in the newspapers, and it says specifically for Elgin and Batavia, and I'm sure you probably already know this, but maybe you can explain it to me. It says Illinois EPA announces $4 million in loan forgiveness to the city of Elgin to replace lead service lines. And there's a similar headline for Batavia. One is for April of 2023, and the other one's February of 2023. So what is the loan forgiveness portion? Is that part of the formula that is being used?
That's the exact formula. So It's a long process, just like we do for the water plants. Like I explained, you have to submit a project plan, you get scored. Those major variables that I showed you on the screen really weigh into those scoring. So there's some communities there are being awarded some of the loan forgiveness. Now, I will say the loan forgiveness doesn't cover 100% of the project. There's still engineering, administrative. There's, no matter what we do, Ryan, you asked me the question on the private side, there's easements we have to obtain when we go and replace the water service line. So there's all that extra cost that not always 100% covered by the project. The EPA, like finished basements, won't cover 100% of the cost. They'll cover reasonable cost. If you come across someone that's got a nicer finished basement, there's going to be some out of pocket.
Yeah, it just seems like this is capped. My understanding is capped at $4 million. They can't exceed, but it just seems like they get the $4 million and it's forgiven, but it's based on that formula. Then okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, back to the 1.8. That's just for 1 year.
That's just 1 year.
So
we're projecting 34 years.
Right. Okay.
So that was actually I did the math. That's like $62 million.
I was going to say it was over 30 years, 35 years.
$61 million.
Right. Okay. Well, and that's not accounting for inflation and all that. Anything. Okay.
Cost stay the same.
So basically, the $4 million forgiveness, it'll help for like a year or a couple of years.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't cover well in the slide. So if you take advantage of any federal or state funding, you are responsible to cover the cost from the water main all the way to the meter, including the restoration.
Is it only for the 1 year, or is that in perpetuity for the entire project going forward?
Any project, any time you're using federal or state money on that project. So I could this year, let's say you got one technically, and I'm not sure if this is the best policy, and it's one of the talking points we'll work through with finance and internally. Technically, let's say, okay, the city got $1 million this year. All right, all those water services replaced, that's great. I got knocked out $1 million worth of projects. The funding runs dry. Because of the requirements of the loan and the law, the city funded the entire service line all the way to the meter, including the restoration. But the next year, the money ran dry because it's a year-to-year thing for the EPA, and we have no more funding, right? So now, what do? Do we pay? Does the city cover that private side now? We did it for one block. We didn't do it for the next block. So these are the challenges.
Kind of complicates things.
Really complicates it, and there's not enough money. I should have started at the beginning. The state of Illinois has got the highest level lead service lines in the nation, just because it was standard of doing business in Illinois forever with the Department of Public Health.
You might have just said this and I forgot. When your plan that you're putting together, when will we see something? What's the next step, I guess?
We'll come back. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of conversation internally. I want to have with finance and our administrative team and our own public works administrative team to figure out what direction we'd like to go. They're going to have their own questions. Once we work through that, we'll probably come back. Like I said, we're not required to report anything. Our first draft plan to the EPA until next April. We'd like to get something in front of you before then.
Yep.
Can I ask one quick thing? It's a complete hypothetical.
Yep.
So let's say I'm a homeowner and you're coming through. I say no. New homeowner, I sell my house a year later. New homeowner comes in, finds out that they were done, and now wants it done. Is the city going to have any responsibility with that over that 34-year period of time?
These are all policy decisions we'll have to make as we're trying to format this. And I guarantee you we're not going to get it right. We're not going to think about every situation and scenario. The one good thing about this, and this is why you submit, and why if you caught it earlier, we actually, once you have a plan, you submit an updated plan to the EPA every year. Like the 3%, the 1.8, it's our minimum. Let's say finance is for the city is, we're doing well. We can do $3 million that year, and we can increase the number we're doing. they give us the flexibility to adjust our policies and our plans. We just need to resubmit them every year to them for review.
And I know you say answering the letters is so important. Is there another medium that we can get out to homeowners, to those people who really do not, for a better word, value their mail or look through their mail closely?
Yeah.
Because if they do miss it, or like, the kids got the mail one day and threw that one away for fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, but something like that where it can be hit multiple times other than just through letter format.
And before you answer, if I can also piggyback on that, for people who get the letter and are concerned that by answering, it's going to put them in some financial jeopardy.
So I guess we can, I'll have to look at our website and make sure that they understand it's just information only. It doesn't commit them to anything that
they may not
we can do.
believe that.
We tried to leave the survey really simple, really easy to use. The fact you use it on your phone. There's a QR code for every home. Our next steps will be, we're again trying to mail. We're looking at different, I don't want to commit to anything, we're looking at different options. Mail is the cheapest. When I get into different options, it gets really expensive, and I got to find people to do it. We don't have the labor to go door to door. So that's where it becomes a challenge.
Where do you start? Say we prove everything. How do you determine where to start?
Well, and
I'm just curious.
And that's going to be an annual thing. So every year will be different, right? So, well, ideally, in our public works mind, we would try to reduce the cost for the city. We would try to, okay, we're replacing this road over on 2nd Street.
Next question.
You know, is there any value of knocking out some lead service lines?
Exactly.
Well, we got the road to pour apart. It's a very invasive project, all right? So, I mean, we'll continue to provide some flyers. I think Heather and the team have been kind of pushing those out. We get inside these buildings and homes, it's invasive. So we like to tie it with other projects that are invasive and tearing apart the road, water main projects, street projects, even sanitary projects. If I run a sanitary or storm down the road and we need, you know, let's say we got some lead service lines, ideally we tackle those first.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious because a constituent brought this up to me, and if, let's say they want to have their lead pipe replaced all the way to the house and it's being trenched or whatever, and they discover that the clay sewer line is below it or near it, is that something they can address there at their expense since it's already opened up, or is that making it too complicated?
They could probably address it at their expense. This is one of the challenges that they're still trying to figure out in Springfield right now, is most of the older communities, it was standard practice, you bury your service line, your sewer and water service line together. It's not allowed by code anymore. There's got to be a physical separation, either 10-foot or 2-foot vertically or 10-foot horizontally. So this is one of the things they're trying to figure out, how they're going to manage this issue, and how are they going to...
Because then it wouldn't be grandfathered in, is that what you're kind of alluding to? Okay.
So that, again, even at the state level, they're trying to iron out some of the details in their own policies, how to move forward.
All right, thank you.
So, how do you, is part of the reason why you don't have a better response rate is that most people don't realize that they're responsible for these lines to begin with. And they see it, they think, well, you know, it's in the ground, the city's not me. Like, is there concern that some of the blowback from people that, well, hang on a second, I'm responsible for this? I thought that it's the city line, it's in the ground, it's yours.
No, we actually explained that real well on the survey portion of it. I think it's more that people just don't read their mail, to be honest. We have the same issue with smoke testing, construction letters, water main break, where we're putting out blue notices, knocking on a door. Just people just don't read their mail. Everyone's busy. You know, you go home, how often do you really sit? At least I don't. I barely ever look at my mail. I go home and I got to...
Did you know that you own the lines from Connection Point?
Well,
You do now.
Yeah. Well, I got the letter and I read my mail, so I had no problem like getting. But regarding that, Well, I understand that ownership, I mean, again, because on top of that too, like Nicor, for instance, I mean, they own the entire line up to the meter, right? Up to it goes into the house. So perhaps people are using that model as saying, oh, it's not my problem. It's just, city owns everything up to my house. I get it. But regarding communication though, I mean, I get an email from the electric utility, saying, hey, you tell me when you take the money out of my account to pay my bill. So if we have emails, can we use that?
That's a question I have to ask IT. I don't think we have the technology that can fully support that right now. So that's a good point, and that's something I can ask. Okay.
So your surveys appear relatively, you said 30% return so far, is that what
we're up to 40% total throughout the city.
40% okay.
Per mailing, we get 20 to 30% return on per mailing. Okay. So we've been slowly reducing
So the one thing that stood out for me that you said, and I didn't realize, and it kind of is that we're not obligated to do the private side as an owner of the house currently, the way the law is currently written. So I think that would provide some sense of relief for some people maybe that can't afford it or unsure of, because this is expensive for some people that may not be able to undertake it on their own. So that was helpful to hear that. This whole presentation, in my opinion, was very helpful. So just want to say thank you for doing it.
You're welcome. And again, I think word of mouth is also, besides letter and reading websites, I think I can't chase you down and I can't replace your lead service line. I can't do that. So, we'll come up and do our portion of it, but once it hits that private property, you do have that right.
Okay.
So out of the 4,000 homes, is there any anticipated success rate or compliance rate?
I have no idea.
There's no way.
And no one's that far in any other replacement projects to kind of give you an idea.
Okay.
I've heard more challenges people didn't think of than I hear about success.
Well, outside of economics and outside of, if somebody finished their basement, those would be two factors, obviously, but I'm sure there's a few more.
I'm guessing this is probably the same answer that you just gave, but do you know if there's legislatively any, disclosure that's going to be required if someone goes to sell their house and they have waived their
I haven't heard of it, but I know real estate agents are catching on to it because we were starting to receive phone calls from real estate agents. All we can do is just tell them what the law is.
Okay.
And again, it's just kind of like lead paint, right? In your house. I'm assuming at some point there may be something.
Right, because if they've been given the opportunity to replace the lead line and have waived that, do they need to disclose it? And is that something we should be telling them as a possibility?
Different legislation that'll probably come out.
Right.
Can I add something to that? I think it's important to remember that any homeowner can visually see the water surface coming in. So any concern with that, home inspector will get covered in that.
Yeah, and home inspectors are picking up on it too. They've educated themselves. A lot of good home inspectors understand what each city's policies are. So it's just like looking at a roof, right? The home inspector can look at a roof and give guidance to whoever's buying it.
I was thinking of radon testing and stuff like that.
Similar. But right now there's nothing. There's nothing that I know of currently.
Yeah, I have, you're going to get a follow-up from me because I have so many questions. That one, I guarantee as soon as possible, it's going to get priced into everybody's house.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't do it, your home value is going to drop 100%. Every realtor around here is going to know about that. I moved out of a home that has a leaky basement that nobody cared about when I bought it 20 years ago because a lot of the older homes have flagstone basements, $20,000 of remediation later, it's going to get priced in. But I keep thinking about things like, okay, if we have a program, and somebody's like, well, you replaced my neighbor's, street 2 years ago. The price of copper went up. It's now 3 times more expensive. And I just have so many different scenarios on what's going to happen.
We can play scenarios all day.
Unfortunately,
and Tim, I think I'm going to jump in there, and I think all of the alderpersons up there are getting probably to the same point of now everybody's head is starting to spin of all the implications
I have
of this.
So many questions,
and I think that's exactly why we've sort of structured this in a way that this is going to be brought in pieces because there are a lot of different things that we're going to need to tackle. And this was intended to be this introductory discussion on it so everybody can start thinking of some of these questions, start wrapping their head around it so we can start to tackle it in more manageable chunks.
And that's why I said I've got so many questions. I'm just going to bring up a couple things that I'm thinking about, and I'm looking forward to answers as they occur to you, as you bring them forward, and you're fulfilling our responsibility to manage this.
Yep. Could we get a copy of this presentation as well?
Yep. That'd be great. Great. All good?
All good, yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I gotta talk about my road closure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Bob, you're...
Our road closure, I keep on saying that.
Fine.
Well, I can't figure out stuff, Sharon.
And if there are follow-up questions that any council person has, if you want to direct those to me, we will make sure to get those responses out to all of the council members as well.
Thank you.
Okay. So everyone's seen the Riverside lift station project occurring down by kind of like by Public Works. We're reaching the last phases of it. Of course, this is going to be the most painful phases maybe, but we'll be fine. We will need to close Route 25 for an extended period of time. We got to run some piping across Route 25. That will start around August 16th to about the beginning of October. There will be a detour as we reconstruct some pipes that are crossing Route 25 so we can connect the existing infrastructure to a new lift station. Past October, once we reopen the road, there will be daily lane closures as we start to demo the old lift station. Remember, the old lift station goes away, it's this flat land along the river. So I just want to let you know, there's going to be a lot of PR coming out about it, but while we had the opportunity to just kind of give you a heads up, you will start to see work starting actually a week earlier. They're going to start working in the river next week, so.
Real quick, so Route 25, like Devereaux, just north of the project site, right? Just
unfortunately, there's no crossroads.
Yeah, you got to go past the park.
Yeah, so the detour is going to be probably pretty extensive, and it'll be part of our PR. You'll be able to see the map.
Have you anticipated a detour going through the neighborhood?
No.
North of, okay.
State route, so we have to use state routes. So we have to stick to 64, 31.
Got it.
The dates again, August 16th through?
August 16th through October, beginning October.
Ish. All right.
Do you know if that's going to...
Short cut to work.
Yeah.
Do you know if that's going to impact the bike route that crosses?
There's going to be different bike path routes as we provide. It's all going to be the same area. It's either going to be on the east or west side of Riverside. They're going to be able to use the bike path, or they're going to be able to use the sidewalk so they can connect to the bike path.
So they'll still be able to traverse that. Okay.
Okay.
All good?
Good?
Good. Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Question on something else.
Oh, okay.
When that's ready.
Public comments. Yep.
I'm Dean Bemis, 304 North 2nd Avenue, St. Charles. I just want to say I got the survey and the letter, and it was exceedingly easy to do. I'm a baby boomer, and I don't know anything about computers, and I got through it. But our guest house is not lead. Our house is lead. So I'm just wondering, can you help me envision what replacing my private site? Is it trenched? Do they send the little machine through the ground, or do they open up the whole thing and destroy my brick driveway? And
So
what's it look like?
If I get your information, I can talk to you one-on-one about this. This sort of city council, this will be one of those educational briefs where we'll give you pictures of current construction practices, so you kind of start wrapping your head around what this actually looks like when we go through the house.
Is it trenching?
Yeah, I would like to talk to you
Okay.
about it.
Sure.
Solve that issue.
So hi, I'm Paul McMahon at 3rd and Chestnut. When did you stop using lead? I mean, you were using lead forever at the beginning, and at some point you stopped putting lead in, correct?
No one really knows.
Okay.
The industry, it wasn't managed stopped using lead until '87.
Okay.
We know that local plumbers in the area stopped a lot earlier than that, but there's really no,
Don't we kind of know, so we live in the Potawatomi area, 1859 house, don't we kind of know, I mean, I did fill out the survey, but don't we know that the old houses have lead and anything built after 87 might, I mean, you kind of have a general idea, right?
Yeah. The only, the big deal truck is, a house 100 years old, and someone who, plumbing machines, know about, that's what we're at here.
But that would be the exception rather than the rule. So for the most part, the whole historic district will have old houses and old plumbing.
There is a possibility. That's why we kind of go
Okay.
Just a reminder, we don't have to give our address. You don't have to give your address.
I'm Leah Beck, and I have a question on the lead lines. So you gave a number of 1.8 million. It's just an estimate for the 3% annually. And I'm just wondering, in that estimate, are you following a plan that's like Batavia's, like Geneva's, like Elgin's? What does that include?
Everyone's got a plan. They're all taxed in different areas. Like at the beginning, each stream different size. The service line, our goal is to try to make the service line kind of bigger, capital projects at first, and then going in and seeing the one house in the area.
So I guess my question is, in your estimate, did you include a plan such as Geneva where there's going to be homeowner reimbursement for this, or is that not even on the table?
Yeah, some of the policy decisions we're going to make over the next
Thank you.
Tim, let me go. 1.8, and I understand that's what it will just cost globally for all replacement. Is that correct?
Yeah, full line.
Full line, the whole thing. It's going to cost somebody about 1.8 to do all of it. Okay.
So, excuse me, just a quick statement here. So when we have, right now, it's, all questions can be addressed by staff, but on like an after meeting, post meeting. So Tim Wilson already said he'll address any questions you have, and you can email him directly or your alderman, and they'll get you the answers. Because the discussion today is just informative for everyone, and we appreciate you coming, but it's not a discussion point in the public comment section this evening or in committees. Thank you.
Easier to get the answers you're looking for. Anything else? Ron, did you have a comment?
Well, I just have it, when it comes to comments from the council.
Floor is yours.
Okay. On the corner of Route 31 in Illinois, there's still two posts there where they held up a sign. Can you remove those posts? They're starting to fall over. Please? Thank you. Illinois and 31.
Thank you.
I forgot what lot number it is.
4, I think.
Yeah, I have a question. This is thrown out there. Do we know how often that the Grossklag building gets hit on the route on 64 and 31? Like twice a year?
Too often? Yeah.
Right.
Higher?
Yeah, I saw it and there was a discussion about it. There's really nothing that you can do about that. I mean, that's just the way that the corner is constructed.
Yeah, the state's right away in that area is right up to the building line, so there's really no room for expansion of the right away. Turning vehicles anymore, they've been stuck in.
They hit the corner again, right.
Impact of the concrete barriers first.
Right.
Slows them down enough to prohibit a lot of damage to the building and all that kind of cause the business potentially.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because I mean I've seen it happen a couple times. We were talking about it. You're like, the building has got to get hit at least twice a year, but you're like giving the.
Regarding that, is it possible can we forbid a right turn there, or can they, is that possible? Can we ask them to do that?
Right turn for.
To go south?
Right, so right turn for them.
No semi right
The state was
turn.
petitioned several years ago about this issue before any of our time here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because we have the benefit of multiple state routes intersecting in our downtown, and with the way the state permits truck routes, they're not interested in prohibiting
any mobility,
truck
whatever?
mobility in either direction on the route.
Do they want to pay to repair the building every time it gets hit?
That's
the concrete
I'd be happy to answer
Yeah,
for you.
Right.
There was talk about that building, there's a piece of concrete that protrudes out on the corner where the truck's tires roll over, therefore it lifts the trailer up and hits that building. So I think that is owned by the owner, and he doesn't want to pay to have it cut, because I think Russell Colby looked into that and they made that suggestion, but I mean, that's the owner of the building that owns that. But they thought of that because I guess they had pictures of the tire actually going over that Ballard. It made a clearance and it went up on that, and it keeps hitting it up there, but I don't know. Maybe he just wants to keep fixing the top versus cutting the.
Getting a lot of expense.
Yeah, it gets expensive after a while.
It's funny because he's an old insurance guy, so I don't know, he probably knows what he's doing. I have no clue.
He's got a stockpile of that wood corbel that he's replacing all the time.
Charges him double I don't know.
Whatever. Good, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Council, no? Any other comments? Then looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yep.
Yes.
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 Yes. Twice in one day.